Morning, afternoon, night, day, next year, last year, yesterday, today, tomorrow, all that other good happy horse mess. Anywho, anyhow, anyway, it's you, Brother Kyle, friendly neighborhood old soldier, coming at you today, this Friday, from Robeson County, North Carolina. Got little dude the back here. We're off to go pick up his mommy. Little dude's been staying with us the last few days. Mommy and Daddy's apartment, their neighbors like to smoke cigarettes and marry ganji without any regards of how it affects the apartment building's air system. And it's been penetrating through into their apartment, giving him the coughs. So they'll be there maybe a few more weeks. We're moving into a new place, nicer, where the actual maintenance staff actually does their job, changes filters, and management enforces the no smoking inside the homes policy that they suppose everybody has to sign where they're at. But neither here nor there. I don't complain. I don't have no complaints about keeping my grandson. What we're going to talk about today, and we'll get back on the points of communism next week. Two things. First one I'm going to talk about is this. I read an article in the Army Times. If you don't know what the Army Times is, it's a periodical that's written weekly. They've got one for the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force. I'm guessing the Coast Guard. I'm not sure about Star Trek. I mean Space Force. They've got theirs yet. I'm sure anything they've got right now is covered in the Air Force Times. And then there's the DoD Times, which is like the umbrella for all of them. Anyway, long story short, it's a bunch of journalists that don't know how to write, because the Army will come out with something that they used years ago, and these journalists always write it like it's a new idea or a new item, instead of writing the truth that it's a revitalized idea. What do you mean, old soldier? Way back when the Army went to the brigade combat teams, okay? Back in the 50s, the Army had what was called regimental combat teams. Very similar structure. You could take an entire regiment with all supporting assets and deploy them, much like the modular brigade combat teams we use today. Because these regimental combat teams could stand alone, so many journals refer to them as pocket divisions, and they could be integrated into a greater or larger organization. But independently they could operate because they had certain supporting elements organic to the regiment. Okay. Case, for example, they had their own artillery battalion, their own engineer battalion, their own quartermaster company, maintenance company, etc., so forth. You get the gist of it. They were self-sustaining as a regiment. And that brings me into the first thing I want to talk about. This article I read, where the idea of mulling around, they're thinking about, it has been mentioned, about possibly stationing an armored brigade combat team in Taiwan. Said again, the idea is being mulled over with the possibility of staging or stationing an armored brigade combat team in Taiwan. Well, why is that important to note? Well, one, it gives Taiwan a stronger sense of credibility as an independent nation. Two, it bolsters our pledge to help keep Taiwan from being usurped by communist mainland China. See, in the greater scheme of things, communist China looks at Taiwan as a state in revolt. The reality is, what Chiang Kai-shek and all his nationalists wound up settling when they were basically kicked out of the country by the Chinese communists during their civil war. Political ramifications. We put an armored brigade combat team there. We're sending a signal to China that, hey, if you decide you're going to invade Taiwan, you're going to face U.S. troops day one. So in a sense, it could potentially antagonize China to invade Taiwan. Now, the article also went to read, about the U.S. Air Force's capability to station long-range strategic bombers in the Pacific, that there was only a half a dozen islands in the region that had runways long enough to support B-52s. The article further went to read that the Air Force only had 150 some odd of these strategic bombers available. That scares crap out of me for two reasons. We only got 150 of those bombers, and ain't 6 whole islands in the Pacific that can support them. No, Guam's one. Guam was used as a base during the Vietnam War. There were B-52 strikes that were launched out of Guam throughout the Vietnam War. Okinawa, possibly, but with political tensions there in past years with U.S. military assets in Okinawa, I don't know if Okinawa wants a nuclear-capable bomber on their island. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but my leaning would be don't. See, the article didn't mention anything about B-2 bombers either. I don't know how many of those got in inventory, probably not enough. Then the article also went to read about the Navy's ability, fleet capabilities they have in the area, that their fleet is really too small to support any efforts to support Taiwan. After World War II, the Pacific kind of became our backyard for naval development, naval experimentation, naval prominence, and naval power. So now you're telling me we don't even have a large enough fleet that we could go and help Taiwan if they absolutely needed it? The other argument in the article was one Air Force general talking about how the Air Force, the Army was encroaching on the Air Force's domain if they do this. And several generals, to include Air Force generals, kind of shot the guy down, stating that it would actually enhance the Air Force's capabilities in the event we had to go support Taiwan with the war with China. Because some of the artillery that would go with this brigade combat team would have the capability of hitting a beachhead. One was launched by Chinese Communist forces, to even outright being able to launch out and hit targets at sea. Okay? Targets at sea. The big reality is this: that article, the way it was written, tells me, if all that's in that article is true, that strategically we're not as strong as we once were. 2, politically, I don't think currently the government that we have, that we had the intestinal fortitude to stand up and support an ally. Now, some might argue that Taiwan's not an ally, but I would beg to differ. We've helped everybody else in the region. Why not help Taiwan? Because Taiwan absolutely does not want to be communist. Don't want to be taken over by communists. Can't do anything for Hong Kong. That all happened because of the Brits. That's on them. But even though the people of Hong Kong want freedom, and it's been 20 years now since they've been turned over to Communist China. So yeah, the article was eye-opening. The other thing is, where would this brigade combat team come from? What division? Or would they stand up a new unit? That's the next question. And doing so, how much more funding would the Army need to do this? Because they're talking about an Army unit, not Army. If you don't know, the Marine Corps did away with all their armor. They're no longer, the Marine Corps no longer has tanks. Okay? The Army is the only proponent now that has tanks. So, would it be a brigade from 1st Cav Division? It's Cav in name, but they're basically an armored division. 1st Armored Division. You could potentially send one from 4th ID because it's a mechanized infantry division. They could rearrange some of their internal brigades to make an armored brigade. 2nd ID, same concept again. 3rd Infantry Division, again, same concept. It's mechanized. They rearrange some of their internal units to make an armored brigade. The point I'm getting at is that active duty wise, we only have one armored division currently on the books. It's 1st Armored, as far as active regular force. All right, there's 2 National Guard, one in New Jersey and one in Texas. Now, folks that are watching this, if you know of anything that I might be remiss here with, or I'm missing, let me know in the comments below. The last time I checked, we only have one active armored division. That's 1st Armored, is based out of Fort Bliss. Okay. And again, you got 1st Infantry that could potentially again rearrange a brigade into an armored brigade. Okay. What do you mean? Well, most of your mechanized infantry divisions in the Army, in this whole brigade combat team setup, usually will have 1 armored battalion and 2 mechanized infantry battalions. So it's real easy to take one from one brigade, move it to the other, and swap out, say, an infantry brigade for an armored brigade. Because in an armored brigade, it's normally 2 armored battalions to 1 infantry battalion. And then there'd be the supporting engineer battalion, supporting artillery battalion, service support, etc. Now, the whole thing about the modularities, the modularity of the modular brigades is they're plug and play. So you could send technically a brigade from 25th Infantry Division, which is light infantry, but attached to them 2 armored battalions. So any myriad number of combinations could happen, but the fact that they're talking about putting an armored brigade in Taiwan, we shall see. I have concerns about the logistics because of what was written in the article, because it really makes us sound weak. So the real question is, did the writer not really know what they're talking about, or are we truly that downsized to the point that our strategic footprint is that fragile right now? All right, totally different subject, way on another page, but I want to call out, I'm giving him a new name. I'm going to call him the Thirdinator. If you didn't see Arnold Thirdinator Schwarzenegger's comments here recently, yeah, you might want to pay attention to what he's spouting off. One of the biggest, your freedoms don't matter, is basically what he said, because people are refusing to get the vaccine. Well, Thirdinator, let me tell you something, buddy boy. This is America. America stands for, represents, and is freedom. Now, you say that people that don't want to get the vaccine, or people that don't want to mask up, are spreading the virus. The only thing you said in that whole comment yesterday that made sense was wash your hands frequently. Because all the other stuff ain't a-working. Social distance ain't working. The masks don't work. and then you want to get the stabby jabby in hopes that it works, but the reality is it's not working. Because Michael Rappaport, that piece of crap, found out the hard way that the jabby stabby is now identified people who gotten it maybe as super spreaders. Again, yesterday, like I said, if you think the vaccine's going to do you good, go and get it. My personal choice, I ain't taking it. I just don't think there's been enough research. I don't think that anything that messes with your RNA is viable for a vaccine. And I just don't trust it. I hear you, buddy. Little dude back here getting all fussy. It's okay, buddy. Papaw's almost done. You don't like it when Papaw gets on a rant and a rave, I guess. But I saw that yesterday because I looked back in history when the United States looked up to Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he was, for a time, someone to look up to. And then I don't know what happened to him. Maybe it was when he married into the Kennedy family. I don't know. I lost a lot of respect for him a long time ago. But folks, I don't like adulterers. Okay? I'm not judging them. I'm not going to cast a judgment upon them. But I'm a firm believer when you take vows, you honor them. I don't, just because the person you're with may have changed their attitudes about things, that if you take that vow to be married to someone, that to me that vow's for life. Now, with that being said, there are grounds for divorce, and I get it. And when it happens, it breaks my heart to see it. Especially I've had friends that get divorced. It breaks my heart to see it happen. I don't wish it on anybody. But there are grounds sometimes for divorce. What I mean by what I've got about adulterers is this. When someone knowingly cheats on their spouse or their significant other and thinking they're going to get away with it and then get caught. Now, of course, we all know that's what happened to the third nader. Just found out he was cheating with the housemaid or the nanny, I can't remember which, and had a child via that relationship. And, in denial about it till he's called out on it. Okay? I lost a lot of respect for him right then and there. And again, I don't know what it was like being married to Maria Shriver. Don't care. If he was that unhappy, she said, we need to just divorce and go about our separate ways. But no, he chose to have an extramarital affair. I'm just not a fan of that kind of thing. Okay? And if you don't like me for that, so be it. I don't know what to tell you, but that's how I feel about it. And that's why I lost a lot of respect for Martin Luther. And not to mention, as a so-called Republican governor of California, a lot of his policies were more rhino in nature. So those are two things I want to talk to y'all about today. But I got to get there and pick up my daughter so she can see her baby boy. Her and her husband are going on a marriage retreat via the Army this weekend. So we get to keep little dude all weekend. And I'm excited about that. But anyway, folks, that's again for you, Brother Kyle. Until next we meet again, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay armed, keep your eyes open, your head on a swivel. And God bless, take care. It's your friendly neighborhood old soldier. Have a great weekend. Have a blessed weekend. And red, remember everyone deployed.